it's not a real job. At least it wasn't then
Mhm.
to be a
Yeah.
developer. A real job is like truck driver or
Yeah.
construction or a carpenter. You cannot sit in front of the computer all day, at least not at that time. So I have a much easier time now to let go of work when I come home, thanks to my kids. I wanted to take control of the content, my content, and not write content just for others, but write content for myself and building my personal brand, so to speak. So that's probably why I started. I leave my kids for kindergarten at like seven, so, and then off to work. So I usually have like 1.5 hour every morning that is like free to catch up. That's usually my most precious time of the day because,
Hey there, busy programmers. Thanks for tuning into the Busy Programmer series, where we dive into the stories, insights, and beyond code challenges of some of the most inspiring people in tech. Before we jump into today's conversation, I would like to ask a quick favor. Statistics show that over half of people who watch this kind of interviews don't subscribe to the channels. So if you enjoy what you are seeing or hearing here and want to keep up with more real, relatable content about life in tech, hit that subscribe or follow button. It's easy and it doesn't cost you anything, but it helps us grow this community, bring on more of the guests we are excited to feature, and keep adding real value for you. Don't be a stranger in read mode only as well. Drop your comments, leave questions for me and my guests, and suggest anyone you would love to see on the show. Together we can shape this channel into a space that truly reflects what matters most to all of us busy programmers. All right, let's get into it. Hope you enjoy today's episode. And hello again in the Busy Programmer series. And this time, it's in my series of interviews with fellow busy developers. I have an amazing guest straight from Sweden, Dennis Adolfi. Hi, Dennis. How are you doing today?
Hi. I'm good. Glad to be here.
Yeah, thanks for accepting my invitation. You are obviously on the list of people who are doing a lot of things, which what we will explore today. But maybe starting from the basics, can you introduce yourself for the people who are watching or listening us?
Yeah, definitely. My name is Dennis Adolfi. I'm 37 years old, live in Gothenburg, Sweden, with my wife and 2 kids. I am very passionate about technology. I've been a member of the Umbraco and Microsoft community for well over a decade, and I'm currently the head of tech at Knowit Experience in Sweden. That's basically summarize me, I guess.
Short introduction. Yes, we've met around 2017, if I'm correct. I tried to recap this. Of course, I was then visiting Sweden and one of the Umbraco events where we probably met for the first time. And then since then, you worked in various consultancy companies, various roles as well. How did you find then time to grow within this setup? Because you were also a developer, backend developer, if I'm correct, or front end. What was your main point of interest? Full stack back in the days before it was cool, right?
Yeah. I think I didn't find any problem growing within the company at the moment. It was, I mean, most companies enjoy, active developers, active, marketing is always appreciated. So, if you wanted to step out and, do conference talks or, blogging or webinars, that's usually, if you have a good employer, that is usually encouraged. So I didn't really find a problem growing within the company that way. And then I've switched position a few times within the company and outside. Tried other companies for a short while, and then circled back to where I am now. So I'm actually back where I was a while ago. So yeah.
Yeah, but what was it always when it comes to motivation of to change or to do something else? Was it always like an urge for, I don't know, learning more or doing more than you were allowed to in existing role, or it was like you got bored, whatever, right? Because the motivations are different. But I know, because I've been there also in multiple times. It's like you never know when is the best time to change, but usually it's later than you realize it. So what were the motivations behind your decisions? Because of you wanted to do more and you couldn't, or is there anything like that you can recap from the past?
Yeah, I think like last time I switched to another company, I switched from consultancy to a product development. So I started working for an e-commerce platform, SaaS platform called Norse, and because I wanted to work more with e-commerce, microservices, Kubernetes, those were businesses and areas that we didn't work with as much at my current employer. So that's why I switched. So that's probably the motivation, trying new tech and new opportunities. And also my friends who are in the same business had always been on my back trying product development. They said, it's the best, you need to try it, but I found that I guess it's a certain kind of people, and I am a consultant. I mean, that's what I do, and I was more comfortable as a consultant, I think.
So you enjoy controlled chaos. That's exactly the way to go.
Yeah, it's controlled chaos, but also the variety.
The variety. Cool. How did you at all started with IT and programming and coding? When it started for you? Was you exposed to computers and technology from the early days of your life, or was it something like later that appeared to your attention?
Yeah, we had a computer early when I was a kid, and I started programming around early 2000s. I was 13 years old. A friend of mine, Daniel, taught me how to write, basic websites, HTML, CSS, nothing fancy. We built websites for no one, for ourselves, and that no one ever visited, but we enjoyed it. That later evolved, so we started setting up servers at his house, start buying domain names and FTP and databases. So eventually it grew to a bigger interest, and we were definitely nerds at the time. We were programming as a pre-party event before going out when we were older. That's probably how I started. I never thought about working as a developer at that age. Where I come from a really small town in Sweden, where it's it's not a real job. At least it wasn't then to be a developer. A real job is like truck driver or construction or a carpenter. You cannot sit in front of the computer all day, at least not at that time. So it never occurred to me that you could actually work as a developer. That was just a hobby. So
how you can do work in front of your computer, right? How does it count?
So I went to culinary school and I became a chef. So I worked 10 years in the kitchen in various restaurants throughout Sweden. And then when I eventually got tired of being a chef, I kind of went back to myself and kind of thought, what other thing do I like and have always liked? And then of course that's programming. And then then you could then I found some university where I could study to become a developer. So
you studied twice. It wasn't like a self-made transition switch into the programming. That's a pretty common story, of course, these days, and I would say even easier than it was back in the days, for sure, because there's more knowledge around. But still, the transition is transition. I don't know if you heard this as something interesting that I've heard recently, is that because of the dynamics of the current world and of course the changes, automations, there are some studies done by someone smarter, of course, that we will be transitioning from 5 to 7 times between the job roles during the lifetime from now on, right? So it's, even though we are right now maybe leaders, entrepreneurs, whatever, there might be 5 to 7 times over the next, let's say, bunch of years when we will need to switch or do something else instead, because either our role will be redundant or there will be a forced change to do something else because other factors. So that was interesting recently. So you have twice, 2 times already behind you. So that's at least leaving you five more to come.
Yeah, and as you said, I think it's common in our profession. I mean, looking at the company what I work at, a lot of the developers have like this is their second career. And it's usually really fun to hear, someone what they did before they became a developer. There's a lot of bodyguard or a lot of restaurants from the restaurant business and events. So
that's interesting switch then. And then you got I don't want to say bored, but then you wanted to do more again. And from information that you've shared, and of course we've met a while ago and discussed it a little bit, you now actively lead and manage 150 plus developers in 9 different locations. So then from being a chef to managing 150 developers, what do you think that were the qualities or abilities from your point of view that enabled you to step into these shoes and make this role sustain for now?
Yeah. Hard question. I mean, when I worked as a chef, I did lead the kitchens as well, but it's a different leadership style in a kitchen and in an office.
I think we need to exchange a lot of skills in between of industries. I can say I was dealing with builders recently a lot, and they have a lot of methods and ways that I would love to see in our branch, right? But yeah.
I guess everyone has seen The Bear, the show, and it's exactly like that in a kitchen. So you cannot have that in a regular office. But yeah, I mean, where I'm at now, I was asked to take over as head of tech for one office, and then eventually that grew into 4 offices. And then like a reorganization happened within the company where we merged all 9 offices, or we're currently in the middle of merging all 9 offices. So that became, all of my offices. And I think it's more than 150 actually, developers. But it should be mentioned that I don't actively manage 150 people every day. We have very self-organized teams and a lot of senior developers that are really good at managing themselves. So the number 150 sounds a lot, of course, but it's not like I talk to 150 developers every week. But I talk to a lot of developers and travel a lot to our different offices. We have a really long country, so a lot of travel recently.
But we'll of course talk about it all. But I'm really curious how you divide this time in between of the responsibilities. And we of course prepared a little bit before this talk, so we can talk about your typical week maybe now, and then try to jump into some ways how you do it with tools, processes, and methods, because obviously the delegation is one of the methods here for sure that helps you do what you need to do. But I assume, again, you work, you as you've mentioned, you also have a family, you travel a lot, and you have life after life, after work as well. So let's talk about how. You've sent me a screenshot of your calendar, and I will share it right now with our viewers who can see our screen. I can only see right now that it's a very nicely color coded. Of course, sensible information were removed from the screenshot. Can you walk us through the typical week then, from your perspective, how it is structured, and what are the specific colors means for you?
Yes. So I had to cut out all the meetings in respect of clients, but the red ones are meetings basically, and the blue ones is lunch and workout. I've found that I need to book my lunch in my own calendar, because otherwise people will send me booking requests on my lunch break, saying, I didn't find any other slot, and then I have to, say, no, that's actually my lunch hour. So yeah, I've just put lunch every day in the calendar, so I actually get to eat something. And the green ones are like focus, like doing the actual work, whether that is coding or doing a presentation, or so that's typical block booking in the calendar to kind of focus. So yeah, some days are just meetings all day, and some days is a bit more space.
How often you revisit this plan? Are you trying to plan it weekly, daily, monthly, or it's more like an ad hoc, or mixed? Because it's.
I mean, I usually don't. It's random, of course. This is probably a typical week, so I try to place the focus times, the green ones here, like to create some space. So otherwise, if it's only meetings, you never get to actually do any work. You just sit in a bunch of meetings. I mean, meetings is work as well, a lot in my work, in my job, but sometimes you actually need to do things as well. What's worth noticing here is that we have a policy where I work where we rarely book a meeting before 9:00. So you see all the meetings start at 9, except on the Thursday. And so no one rarely book a meeting before 9. You really need to apologize before if you do a 8:00 meeting. And I leave my kids for kindergarten at like 7. So, and then off to work. So I usually have like 1.5 hour every morning that is like free to catch up. That's usually my most precious time of the day, because that's when I catch up all the missing Slack calls, Slack messages, all the missed emails, and trying to, when the day starts at 9, you've just cleared your chores, and you're like ready for a new day. I think that's a really precious time, those 1.5 hours every morning.
What about then your evenings? Because I realized the same, that my mornings, when I'm woke up in early morning, I did even something crazy a couple times. It was like I woke up at 5 a.m. And I spent two hours of my time before even kids were waking up. So that was an amazing time. But of course, the problem with this approach is that I need to go to sleep relatively early, and I have my problem with the fact that I also like to work in the evenings and even during the nights. In the past, my prime time was between 11 p.m. and 2 a.m. That was my time. That was my my crush of everything. And of course, if I will sit up until 2 a.m., there's a very weak chance that I will wake up at 5 and do something creative again. So what about you? Are you doing anything educational wise, work wise, or anything like that after the scheduled plan, or in the evenings, or anything like that these days?
Yeah, I mean, I also tried the 5 a.m. club, as you mentioned, not voluntarily. We had our son came 1.5 years ago, and he always woke up around 5 in the morning.
He
And
was in
then
5 a.m. club since he was
he
born.
was 5 a.m. club. He's very successful, very
Yeah.
early. Then I started work at like 5, and I had him next to me in the crib. That was a nice. I mean, as long as you get to sleep, you get to bed early the day before.
Yeah.
I have no problem getting up 5 in the morning. It's actually really nice to be up that early.
Mm-hmm.
And then when everyone else comes to work, you've already worked 4 hours,
Yeah.
and your half of your day is done. Obviously, that wouldn't work now with the position I have now, but as a developer working remotely, that worked. And study wise, I mean, I read these study books before I go to bed. Not because I have to, just because I it's my hobby. Tech is my hobby,
Kind
and
of routine to also go asleep
yeah.
early.
So I don't really see it as work when you're studying before you fall asleep. It's instead of reading a fiction or crime, I'm reading an Azure an Azure service documentation.
Pretty nice horror then,
It could be.
for some, right? For some. Yeah, but that makes sense. And of course, you've mentioned the kind of new position and role, and I assume you need to be available for the people as well. Are you working mostly from an office or from home, or is it mixed? You're also traveling between offices, as you mentioned. But when it comes to the percentage of time in office and remotely in house, how would you divide it? Is it possible to divide it somehow?
Yeah, I work from home like 2 days a week, and then try to be 3 days at the office. But I also, like I mentioned, travel a lot. So I travel at least once a week to another city, sometimes more. So, but yeah, it's nice to get to the office. I before this position, when I was at the Norse, I worked like 100% from home. That was nice in the beginning. I think everyone at the beginning of the pandemic, when we were working 100% remotely, everyone was like, "This is great." But then, as time proceeded, we got more and more, eager to interact physically, with people and have, physical meetings and such. And so I appreciate that a lot more now. Like when you're actually at the office, seeing people, it's more exhausting. You come home and you're really exhausted because you talk to a lot of people and you've been in these different settings. But it's still, I think, it gives me more meaning than sitting in my basement all day.
Mm-hmm. Again, it was exposing a lot of challenges, and I do remember the same from my perspective, because I was working remotely for more than 10 years before pandemic, so I knew those problems and I knew those challenges. But then it was fortunately to see and help people dealing with it from the perspective of someone who already went through that. But right now I'm also towards mixed setups, and seeing people is cool, but also sometimes closing your chamber and doing your work from your basement is needed, and allow being able to do it as you want it or as you need it, depending on the situation. That's the biggest benefit, I think, of our industry and the branch that we currently have. But also for you is that you are still located in one country, so that closes this time zone challenges that we are all sometimes facing, because that's another level of the game when it comes to managing time and dealing with the calendars. Diving into the blocks, because you've mentioned that you also plan this focus time and time box yourself. Are you using any techniques within those to make it most productive? How do you stay motivated and productive during those times? Because that's another challenge as well that I see. You can plan something to work 4 hours on presentation, but then you have fire here, fire there. Someone needs your attention. You need to pick someone earlier, and the plan is ruined. So how do you execute those plans to make it most effective for you?
Yeah, that's the daily challenge. I don't have a clear recipe for it. I mean,
no, really? I think everyone had it.
No, I mean, I just try to turn off Slack, turn off the email, airplane mode on the cell phone, and just try to really focus on what I'm about to do. But it's, as you said, you lose focus for a little while, and then you start checking your email, and then you're swamped, you're stuck in something else. So it's always the challenge, but at least I aim for those focus blocks to be purely for that focus. But not always. You need to be a little bit agile, I guess. If there's a fire somewhere, you need to drop your focus time and just help out where you're needed.
That's true. Again, I'm smiling because every one of us and all the people probably who are watching or looking for some knowledge, they're always thinking that someone else is such structure. The plan is executed all the time. Everyone is David Goggins of IT or doing everything like crazy, and then the reality happens, and we are all suffering from doing things or having something else to be done before something else. And now let's talk about this, because of course, besides the standard role and standard responsibilities, since we know each other, you've been also doing a lot of other things. You've been blogging, you've been public speaking, you've been doing many community activities as well inside of Umbraco, and also then Microsoft communities. Was it always a part of your how you considered it? Was it always a part of your work and job time, or was it something that you dedicated specific amount of your, let's say, private time to that, or was it mixed? How did you place it inside of your calendar and your life?
I've always done the community activities at work hours. I've been really strict with myself and my employer that I don't do these. I don't work on weekends, and not at night either, unless I put myself in that situation, take a long lunch or something, and then you have to catch up, but I don't work on community activities outside of work. And as I mentioned earlier, it's never really been a problem, because most employers appreciate that exposure and marketing that they get from a blog post or being a face in the community from that company. You're really, growing the company name. So, I mean, like Novicell, is it right?
Yes.
I mean, I would never know about your company unless it was for you, or the other developers from Novacell being traveling, being on stage, and I guess that's the same for a lot of companies. These ambassadors traveling.
But funny that you say that, because we who were always doing this feels like it's normal, and it is appreciated because we either saw or see this appreciation from the people who we surround with. But for a lot of people who I spoke in the past, it's not that obvious. They would love to do that. They would love to write a blog post, but whenever they are even asking for this as a part of the responsibilities, a lot of companies say that, sorry, but we have other priorities. Sorry, you need to do this and that because that brings us money. We are not interested in building our public presence because clients are making us richer. So that's the perspective that I would love to, of course, see more often, and seeing it more also from the perspective of employers, because I know how important it is for a lot of the companies. So, but often people need to fight for this time. And there is a lot of also other developers, a lot of people who are not even able to do it, and then the quick receipt might be for them also to either fight for this time harder, or find the place where they will be more supported, because if they want to do that, that's probably a waste for the current employee if it's not used the right way, because I at least know, and you probably too, how hard it is to find a developer or someone with technical knowledge to get up on the stage and talk about it, or travel across even the country or the world and attend events and spread this across other fellow. It's 3% of developers, if I remember correctly from some of the books, who are willing to step on the stage and share it. So, if you have this kind of guy inside of your team and you do not support it, but only ban it from being present, that's probably a little waste. That might be a waste of potential.
Those guys or girls are really unicorns.
Yeah.
They are rare.
Yeah, but again, that's great to hear, because I always admired your dedication and commitment to sharing knowledge, because your blogging time, even in my other YouTube channel and show, you had your own segment, right? That is appreciation time, Adolfi appreciation time, because you were constantly blogging and sharing your knowledge about the specific areas of your interest, your work, and of course your project work as well. And I know how hard it is to keep these commitments running, but then it proves that you were very dedicated to do that. So was there anything that you specifically do to motivate yourself, or anything that motivated you to do it more often? For example, let's have this situation: you join the new company, and then you say, okay, I'm this kind of guy. I would like to share my knowledge. I write a lot of blog posts. I want to have this in this amount of time to do that. Was it something like that, or as a part of your job you said, oh, I did something like this cool, or someone else did it, and I want to share it. I will write a blog post about it tomorrow. Was it one or another way, or something else?
Yeah, I mean, I've been clear with potential employers, on interviews and such, that I am active and I need to be able to do this kind of activities at work, and that was not an issue, not a problem. As mentioned, most employers enjoy the exposure, and then just being consistent about it was just. I mean, I've just always blogged about things that I'm working on, so it's just a matter of saying a few words about a piece of code that I came across in my everyday work life. So it's very random. What I blog about, and it's I don't really pick specific topics. It's just depending on what's my current assignment and what I find exciting. Yeah.
Okay. We will talk about blogging. I have a couple more questions about it for the later phase of our conversation. But just to close also the role and the team and also the division of the community and normal time, let's say. Are you actively also advocating this amongst your team members now? Is it something like you've mentioned that there are some unicorns, there are some people who are obviously stepping up and are willing to do it more often, but are you giving this kind of role model example, or we are leading by example that this can be done or this is cool amongst your team now? How do you do it now?
Definitely. I hope that everyone feels that, and I encourage everyone in our organization to put yourself out there more. And if someone reaches out and they want to write a blog post or be on stage, I'm usually very encouraging about that and try to give them the tools so they can make that happen. Find the right person in marketing that they're going to talk to get that blog post out. I'm also helping a few developers on their MVP journey, becoming an MVP in different areas. So I try to share my experiences and my how I did to become an MVP, to see if I can give them some advice, I guess.
Okay, that's great. So what is your biggest challenge now in this new role? Is there anything that you are right now struggling with?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of challenges. That's why I picked the job, to be challenged.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's of course in this economy, the budget. We were talking, before we went live here, the challenges of the current economy.
Yeah.
You're not, we cannot do all the things I've wanted to do, and the things that we could do before, let's say, the pandemic, when the economy was better, before the pandemic. I mean, hackathons, big. I would love to take all of our 150 developers and just go for a code cabin somewhere, and just do hackathon and have a great time. But that's not. There's no budget for that, at least not in this current economy. So there's a lot of focus on productivity and
that makes sense.
delivery. But I mean, everyone where I work is very understanding of this is how it is at the moment, and we just have to hope that the economy turns around so we get to do all those fun activities again that we did before.
Yeah. So speaking about that, do you think that right now or in the nearest future, what would be the skill sets or the approaches that developers or people from our industry should take to survive? It might sound dramatic, but of course, a lot of us and a lot of people are right now thinking about being maybe not redundant but less relevant for specific setups or processes or businesses, and there's a danger that it will be evolving. Do you think that is there anything from your perspective or maybe your experience currently that people can be more interested about to stand out, to be prepared or shine within this crazy times?
I think teams nowadays need to be really agile, and I mean, it's very crazy these times, and things change very quickly, especially with AI. Teams need to be on their toes and adjust quickly. You can get a new plan every week, and that needs to be fine. At Norse, where I worked at, the team I managed, we planned like one sprint ahead, nothing more. We had the current sprint, and then we had one future sprint. We didn't really see a point of planning more than one sprint ahead, because we realized that never happened. It was always the scope would change, or the direction of the company would change. So there was no use of planning months ahead. You would just take one sprint at a time. And I think that's an important skill for teams to have, to be ready for change, and change direction quickly, scale up, scale down, quick. We have clients that can call one day and say, we have low budget, we need to scale down, and then the next month they call and say, oh, we found budget, let's scale up. And then the teams need to be ready to juggle that.
I also observed from at least development point of view that right now it might be beneficial for developers to understand a little bit more of business. It's more like do not just await tasks to be clearly defined by someone, because someone means right now that it might be you, because you need to speak with the business, you need to listen to some requirements, or even figure it out yourself before, because someone else didn't spend either time or wasn't able even to prepare it for you. And I at least, whenever I speak with my teammates and people who I surround with, it's like, understanding business now helps, because at the times when you were a specialist within one framework, and then you were just applying almost ready solutions to almost ready problems, are over, because this is something what can be easily done by either automations or GPTs or LLMs, or by copying and pasting something from the past. So do you see it as well, that people maybe not needs, but people with ability to understanding business or communication skills to speak up and speak about problems are the ones who might be more needed now amongst the teams?
Definitely. And I think we're already there. I mean, developers nowadays are not just coders, they're problem solvers. We're not code monkeys who are like following precise instructions, but developers today need to, like, as you mentioned, fully understand business problems and user needs. That's why I'm not really worried about AI taking over the developers' jobs. I think AI will probably, if we talk specifically about AI, I think it will remove a lot of like tedious tasks from the developers' day. But I still think like understanding user behavior and business needs and defining acceptance criteria and such will still be a part of like a developer's day. And maybe developers in the future will be more prompt engineers, but it's still gonna be it's still gonna be development. There's a lot of hardcore developers from the 80s, 90s who think that what we're doing today is not coding either, with all the frameworks and libraries. So, I mean, tech is always changing. So I think development will look a bit different 10 years from now, or, but there's still going to be developers there.
Yeah, I do personally think that we will just do more with AI, and we will be able to do more faster. So the real question, and from my perspective, currently explored challenge is that will there be a demand for that amount of work that we can produce? Because I can see, based on my experiences right now, that I can do things quicker, faster. I can verify ideas immediately almost, and I can save a lot of time on struggling between option A, option B, option C. So if I will choose options faster, I can do more solutions. So we need more clients or more problems to solve. And that might be the challenge, because we know that amount of problems is also possible to be counted, but we'll see. But maybe we will create more problems out of it to solve them later. Some other problems.
Yeah,
So,
probably.
that's interesting. That's great. That's great to hear. And I think in general that these are the challenges that are also seen. I've been interested in this a while ago, and I was like intentionally abandoning this topic and area for a while, but then I realized that it's not something what will just be another trend. So it is right now something what we need to just incorporate within what we do, and definitely do not feel ignorance on that, because I see people doing amazing stuff with it, and I think we will just lose if we won't adopt in this case, because that's the challenge. Cool. I think there is one question that I wanted to ask you about the interdisciplinary skills as well. I didn't know that you were a chef. That's one thing that made me change the direction of this question. But also, people who are listening to us might not know that you are a handball coach. So this is another leadership role, I would say, that might be a mixture of things. Is there anything that this taught you, or anything from IT branch that you took into a trainer's role that make you feel like fulfilled on both, or do you treat it completely as a side project that offloads your head from the IT industry?
Yeah, I think it's a lot different in the two areas, being a coach and being a leader at work. And also, I'm handball coach for kids. It's much easier.
Another challenge.
It's much easier.
It depends. To be fair.
Yeah. 150 developers are much easier to lead than 30 kids that all running around in different directions. So if anything, it taught you patience, I guess, of being a coach. But I mean, mostly I think I do it just to be a bigger part of my daughter's life. It's a big part of her life, handball, and hopefully something she's going to do for very long. And to be able to be part of that is a luxury. And she's still really proud that I'm the coach. That's probably going to change soon, where I'm just going to be the embarrassing dad. But at the moment, when she's still proud, then it's a luxury to be able to do it.
How old is she now? What was
She's 5.5.
5.5.
So I think next year maybe that they're gonna start with playing actual games against other teams. At the moment, it's just practicing.
Yeah, I'm asking this because not that quite a long time ago, I watched a movie about the Venus the Williams sisters. I don't know if you've seen this one. And if you haven't,
I saw the trailer, but
please note it down and watch it at some point, because the father of Williams sisters was a tough guy. He was really determined to turn it into success, and he had no doubt that it will happen for them. And he was an interesting example, and I think also a gold mine of ideas for how to turn it into a business lessons, and the other way around, because you've seen that determination, the consequence, and just strict routines and just small steps every day makes you land in the position where you are you wanted to land, right? So that I was very curious if that's something what you also see from various perspectives. But I know also from my basketball perspective and my father's perspective as well, how challenging it is to teach children anything. And I was, after running school for children as well, I do remember that it was my auto therapy and my therapy also for stress out the IT industry. But the other side of it was that I was stressing with the kids, and then I needed to speak with adults, and I was already broken by 20 kids who had not the best day, let's say, polite way. But yeah, that's interesting. But yeah, then blogging is another point on my agenda that I really wanted to explore in a little bit more details then, because you've mentioned that you do it because you document that what you are struggling with, what you are doing, and a lot of people I spoke with and who wanted to start blogging, they always kind of, I mean, not always, but they often stop because they think that it's too challenging. They can spend 2 months selecting blogging platform or building it themselves because they are programmers. So why not to build another blogging engine? And they don't blog because they often are killed by their own determination to write the best, the most beautiful, the most fulfilling blog post out there. Do you have any techniques or approaches from your point of view that helped you to do it consistently? Or what would you say to anyone else who is struggling with this kind of problems from the blogger's perspective?
I mean, my blog has never it's never been I haven't had that pressure on myself to make the perfect blog posts like you mentioned that some might have. I mean, I know that I'm not writing a technical essay for Microsoft. It's just my personal blog, so it's more in a diary form. So yeah, it's not the highest writing skills, I guess. And I guess now when you have ChatGPT that can help you, that must make it even easier. Although the content I've tried, the ChatGPT writing blogs for you, usually not the highest quality, but it's a good tool to kind of find spelling errors or grammar help and such, even since I'm not English native speaker. But I mean, that would probably be a tip for anyone starting out now, and not have the highest expectations early on. It's a very long game, blogging, and I read in a book somewhere that when you're starting blogging, that in the beginning no one's going to read them. It's actually going to be that way for quite some time, and then finding motivation to write several blog posts that no one reads is going to be hard. But eventually people will read them, and people will also find the old blog posts that you wrote that no one read years ago. I still see that some of my oldest blog posts are some of the most popular ones still. So you need to really stay in there when you're starting out, even though you're getting really few visits early on. But it gets easier and easier, I guess, for every year writing.
Yeah. I did my blog back in the days as well, but and I loved writing things. And funny enough, when I was probably high school, even before high school, we were blogging as kids, and then sharing our horror stories amongst other friends, and then we had a lot of readers because everyone was curious about what someone else has done stupidly last weekend or last week, and then we were hacking the first Marquette text on HTML and CSS files. So that was probably the beginning of the coding. But then I like the idea, the mention that you've said that we're writing a blog post that no one reads, and often we can block ourselves from writing anything, or we will write it and then expect to be seen by everyone, when in reality, even if you are sharing the same blog 5, 10 times, 11 times, there are still people who didn't even know that you are writing blog, right? So this is interesting to see that we definitely need to remove those barriers and just start doing it, because then, as you also mentioned, it goes easier and easier with every possible blog. But I always admire the consequence and the commitment to just dropping solid, quick article about specific area, because again, it might be just a tool to someone else to explore it in more depth. We are not teachers in the university. We are not sharing the professor's papers that will be referenced by another professors in their work. It's more like pointers or information, small bits of knowledge to be shared. So yeah, that's cool. That's cool. But I wanted to ask about this motivation as well, because you are doing this constantly. You are doing it for years. What were the first blog posts when you wrote for the first time? Do you remember the start of your blog?
The start of my blog was during the pandemic, but I've been writing blogs before that for years. I think I wrote early for like 24 days in Umbraco. The Christmas calendar was like 2016. But I wrote several years before that. I've always wrote for different platforms, like for the company I work for, or Script, or various platforms. I guess during the pandemic, what I felt was that I wanted to take control of the content, my content, and not write content just for others, but write content for myself and building my personal brand, so to speak. So that's probably why I started the blog, to kind of build something for myself and not. You also get a lot more control over what you write about. If you're doing it on your own platform, you can write about whatever, and it's like no one can have an opinion of what you're writing about, because it's your blog. You write about what you want.
Until maybe you're working for a big corporate, and then you need to have this, intro on your profile
Filter.
that opinions are on my own, right?
Yeah.
So
I'm not there.
We are not there
I'm not
yet.
there
So.
yet. But I've seen a lot of those,
that's the level up.
Microsoft employees.
Exactly.
Always, these opinions are my own, not reflected on my company.
Yes, but what I wanted to ask you about is, like, did you ever lose a motivation to do those things? Did you ever feel like, okay, screw it, I will just do what I'm asked for? Did you ever feel like there was a moment when you didn't want to do that?
I mean, I think in the beginning I got a little bit obsessed with views on the blog. Probably everyone who's starting a blog is does this mistake. You focus too much on Google Analytics, and there was you could write one blog post that you were extremely happy about, like, this is so good, and then no one watched it, read it, and then you wrote something that was really poor quality and it got a bunch of viewers, and it's like, I cannot understand how is this going. But I after a while I'd kind of get fed up with that, and I even removed Google Analytics or tracking altogether from the platform for like a few years. just because it wasn't good for my mental health to constantly watch those numbers. And because when the numbers are low, it's really easy to lose motivation. It's like, why am I doing this? No one is reading this. Why bother? So I guess if someone are planning about starting writing, skip analytics for the first few years. Just write it and just imagine that you have thousands of readers every day. And then you can put on analytics a few years later if you really want to know. But in the beginning, don't focus on that. Write for the right reasons, for yourself and to help others, not for viewers, I guess.
That's a really great advice, I would say. But of course, we all are in the same trap, especially in the social media era and all the other stuff where numbers in theory matters more, but in reality they don't matter at all. So that's something everyone needs to realize on their side and then switch mindset to do it for the purpose. So yeah, I think that's a really good advice. And yeah, and you've been a part of this community and communities for a while. How do you see this role and this community activities over the next future years? Let's say, what do you think that tech industry is headed in the next 5-10 years? Of course, having this AI involved and the speed of current change. How do you see this and the value of community and these activities?
It's a hard one. Yeah. I think obviously AI is going to play a huge role shaping the industry for going forward. I think communities like Umbraco and the Microsoft community is going to be really important to help shape the direction of AI and where we're going. I really enjoy or appreciate Microsoft's responsible AI approach, and that's probably something that is easier for the community to encourage technology going forward, to make sure that we're doing it responsibly and consciously when we're implementing AI or tech in general, that we're doing it for the right reasons. I think the role is going to change, but as I think you mentioned as well, we're probably just going to end up doing more. And that's the problem then becomes, do we need more? Is it a demand for more? I was a guest on a podcast many years ago, before this. I think it was before the pandemic. And then we were in a completely different situation, because we were in a situation where there was such a high demand and we could not find enough developers. We were hiring people from the schools before they even graduated, because it was such a high demand of developers. And now we're in a completely different situation. Now we have this power of AI that's going to make us be able to do so much more. But the demand is not as big, a lot to do with the economy as well. I think that the timing of AI, getting so big now, and the timing of economy being so bad is unfortunate. Imagine if we had, ChatGPT and what everything AI is now. Imagine if we had that like 2018, when the demand was so high and the economy was better.
And still, it was less than 10 years ago, right? So how to think about 5 or 10 years ahead of us right now if it's changing so fast. So yeah, it is tough one, because it's really hard to predict it, because and what about this high computing that is being worked on right now? What about sustainability and all the others challenges that are right now are also maybe less positive side effects of the increased demand or computation power? So it is interesting times we are living in, and again, adoption skills. Plus, I think why I started this idea of the busy program is because I noticed that dealing with all of that and staying it's even hard to say up to date, because it's impossible to stay up to date with everything. It's more about really sometimes feeling FOMO, but sometimes feeling JOMO of missing out those things, and being in balance of this mental state between the crazy speed of technology now, but also life in general. So I think that right now, mixing and marrying those skills, the soft skills, however we'll name them, with ability to adopt might be the key to be ready, however ready we can be to anything what will be next, right?
Definitely. I think that's one of the many benefits of having small kids. As well, they kind of force you to switch out of work when you're like off work. They demand or they expect you to be more present in the moment. So I think I have a much easier time now to let go of work when I come home, thanks to my kids, because
Yeah.
I'm just focused on them when I get home. When I didn't have kids, it was like when you get home, it's like, what should I focus on? Yeah, sure, your wife, but it was hard to stop thinking about a project or some cool tech stuff you had explored. But now you get home from work, it's cooking, it's cleaning, it's swimming lessons, it's everything, life.
I was going to ask you about other ways of offloading from work, but you just spoiled the answers for that. So
Yeah, I think definitely family is a good way of recharging or offloading and workout. Uh, I've started yoga and Pilates.
yeah.
Really nice way to wind down, and yeah, it's a good tip if
Yeah.
you haven't tried it out.
Funny enough, I listened even today in the morning a podcast from one of the very strength guys who is, lifting heavy weights, and he said that he is recommending Pilates for a lot of his fellow trainees, and they were making jokes of 10 very big men walking into the Pilates classes, and they said, yeah, but it makes them feeling relaxed, stretched, and detached. So that works out, and same with yoga. I heard a lot of positives about it, and even on the recent conference that we went with my friend, they had a yoga session during the conference day with ambient music being played in the background, sunshine just next to the lakeside. That was a nice moment of being able to detach. But I do agree, kids and family, of course, it's not a pro tip for everyone, because it's not that funny enough, Troy Hunt wrote a blog post back in the days that if you want to be more productive, make yourself some kids, and I do agree with that, because it also made me more productive. But at the same time, challenges these days are that we are connected to those devices, to mobile phones, computers. We have everything next to us, and it's hard to compare with someone who has a little bit different situations, because obviously we won't be doing, you and me probably in the same situation, we won't be doing work for 16 hours per day now, because we can do that, or we don't have anything else to do. But someone can do that, and it will obviously will lead to some different results, maybe better, maybe worse. But the situation is changing, and also I don't want to sit in front of my kids with my mobile phone answering emails because some content block is not appearing on someone's website, right? No one is dying, and at the same time, we really need to have those boundaries. And I believe that because of lack of boundaries, you have a lot of problems amongst the teams, structures. And that's something what right now I'm passionate about, is like showing myself, my kids, my teammates that you can do more sometimes by doing less but more effective. So it's like you don't need to really spend 16 hours at work to just prove someone that you are doing work for 16 hours, but you can spend 8 effective hours or 5 even effective hours solving some true problem, and then showing yourself that you can play basketball, go out with the kids, or literally lie down and do nothing because you deserve that. So that's the tough times.
It's funny because your brain keeps working even though you're not thinking about work. It's I mean, the number of times you're like left like a problem, and then you went home, and then the next morning it's like, now I know how I'm going to solve this thing. It's like your brain has been working in the background asynchronously on the problem while you play basketball or be with your family, and that's usually better than hammering down 16-hour workday to solve the problem. Sometimes you just need to leave it and come back.
Or have a quick walk, right? And then the problems are resolving. But yeah, I do also found myself in the position where I was constantly thinking about something, and I wasn't able to focus on the things here and now. But then I always remember one analogy and one story that my friend shared a while ago, because he was sitting with his daughter and just checking something on the mobile phone, answering some emails, checking socials or whatever. And then his daughter asked him if he's bored with her, if he's bored right now. And I do remember that he said that, it was such an influential moment on his life, that, oh no, I'm here with you and I'm not bored at all, but I looked bored because I'm not with you. I'm with my mobile phone. And since then, I started really thinking about things like that, and leaving my phone when I can, very far away from me, or trying to truly detached when I need to be detached. But of course, I'm failing at it a lot, or doing it intentionally. But then my daughters are doing something else intentionally, which is not always allowed as well, or something like that. So we have these guilty pleasures sometimes, but at least we are aware that this is not a way of spending time together. But obviously, this is the time not together, but in the same place, for example, right? So from time to time. But that was a moment when I
brutal.
Yeah.
Kids can be brutally honest.
Oh yeah.
Especially my daughter now is 5.5, so she has no filter whatsoever. She can also say some really hard truths. I know. It was like I have a similar story. Like a while back, I was traveling a lot, and then my daughter said something like, because I asked her, did you miss me when I was gone, and she said something in the terms of, I forgot that you exist, and that's also and I don't. She didn't mean that, but I totally get what she meant, and I felt like, okay, the travel has to stop now. So yeah, I rearranged a lot in my plans, and I try to travel as little as possible. I travel when I absolutely have to, and I always try to make sure to get home before bedtime, or get home before kindergarten, because kids are the most important thing in life.
There is this analogy, and I don't know if it was Oscar who also reminded me about it recently, but he said about, the only people who will remember you working your ass off or working extra time are your kids, or you're the closest ones, right? Your ex-employee won't even remember that there was someone who was, fixing issues on production until 5 a.m. in last year, right? But your kids will remember that you weren't there for them, right? So yeah, I do the same. I one pro tip that I do right now traveling is like, I'm leaving to the airport in the middle of the night. So I'm not going during the day. I'm not going in the morning, but I'm just putting my kids asleep. And then in the middle of the night, I'm just traveling to catch up an early flight from Warsaw. So that makes me, put them asleep. Of course, I'm more destroyed then because I sleep less during the night, but that's my commitment to be in two places most often. But it is tough, and again, there's no perfect balance. The work-life balance exists as a term, but then in reality, especially if you are ambitious, and probably you can also agree to that, you want to be successful, you want to solve those problems, and because you want, then you think about it even more than you need to, and that's the problem of ambitious people, and also the industry that we are living in, because you can check all the information on your phone, you can always read, always learn, and that's another trap that we can fall into, right?
And our industry never stops. It's global time zones, so you could work 24/7 if you really wanted to. So you need to turn off, when you're done. Otherwise, you will go crazy, I think.
I agree. Cool. We'll be slowly wrapping up, and I was thinking about this education for a while. And of course, you've mentioned that you are reading a lot of books, sometimes technical, mostly technical. Is there anything that you've read recently that was kind of maybe worth noting, worth sharing? Any kind of game changers from the book list, or maybe movies, or any materials that you could share or leave our viewers with?
I usually recommend the book Soft Skills. Have you read it?
No, probably no. But who's the author of the book?
Good question. Quick Google. I always recommend this book for when I'm at schools. It's for developers, but it's focusing on like everything that is not technical in a developer's life and career. The author is John Summaries.
Okay, because there's another one called by Dan White, the soft skills book.
Okay.
But soft skills, the software developer's life manual. That's the name. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's a lot about building a personal brand, treating your name as a product that you're selling, and not just randomly doing different initiatives, and have a clear plan and goal. I unfortunately read the book too late in my career. I would have wished that I read it earlier. So I already made a few of the mistakes in the book, but I always try to recommend it to new developers to kind of get a good start. Other than that, I recently read Co-Intelligence because I'm interested a bit about AI and like how it's gonna affect the future society. So that's a book by Ethan Mollick. Yeah, Ethan Mollick, Living and Working with AI. So it's like the non-technical aspects of AI. It's more of like how it's gonna shape our society in the future. So that's worth a read. It's an interesting book. What did you say more? Movies.
Any movies?
I'm a Netflix series kind of guy. Me and my wife has this weird interest of watching these dramatized serial killer movies
Okay.
on Netflix. I'm not sure why we watch them all night, but we love them. You know, the Jeffrey Dahmer, Ted Bundy. Recently saw Monsters, about the Menendez brothers who killed their
Yeah,
parents.
yeah. I saw it,
I
but I
don't
haven't
know
watched.
why it's good. I don't know why we watch these shows, and but they're great. I mean, that's completely different from what I work with. So that's
Yeah.
probably
Yeah. I watched. That's a great set of recommendations. I'm just looking for the title that I recently watched. It's a fresh movie on Netflix as well. I won't be trying. I don't know if it's not a Swedish movie. To be funny, yeah, it is Swedish. Slapp Taget. That's the name of the movie.
what's what was it called?
It was Slapp Taget with an A with double dots on top. So
Slept Target. Yeah.
Slapp
Slept
Taget.
Target. Yeah.
It was.
Oh yeah, you watched that? That's Swedish.
Yes, we watched that with my wife recently. A very great movie about importance of life. I would say. I won't spoil too much, but it is really emotional drama. So yeah, that's and funny enough, it's Swedish. So if you haven't watched that, check it out because it is really probably also about the topics as we talked about family, about the priorities, about various other things. So I can heavily recommend to anyone if you haven't watched that. It's quite fresh from what I can see because
Yeah,
I'm also trying.
I have it on my list. I saw that it's she's great, Josephine Bornebusch, who's
Main
the
actor.
director and actor in that. You should watch. She have another one called Älska mig, or Love Me, on
Okay.
Netflix. I think it's on Netflix. That she also made. It's really good as well. So
Noted
it's
down. Noted.
probably the same vibe, I think.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, noted down. And yeah, it's always interesting because sometimes it might be a heavy, nerdy, technical related, but more and more often recently I found like being exposed to life situations helps me to really detach and then be better at work because if as you mentioned kids, for example, if you want to spend more time with kids, then you need to be more effective at work, so then you do better work at work and you don't want to do it after work. So yeah, I think there is a lot of lessons, cross lessons amongst the everything what we watch, what we see. So yeah, I kind of like this recommendations. I will note them down, and of course for everyone who will visit the recording of this conversation, the links will be already there. So yeah, thanks for that. And yeah, then let's close it then with some traditions that I have for the end of the episodes. There are two traditions that I've adopted from other podcasters. One is the questions that I will also ask you for. So you need to write me down a question. It might be any kind of questions. It doesn't need to be technical. It doesn't need to be precise. It might be a philosophy related question as well that I will ask to someone who I will be interviewing next. And then I have a question to you from other fellow busy programmer that had recorded an episode earlier. And funny enough, that's an interesting question to you particularly, but because the question is, what's the best meal you can cook on your own? And I could promise that the guest I was interviewing didn't know that you were a chef. But that's an
Oh,
interesting question.
yeah. I made the other day, in fact, I made a chili, and to me and my wife, like chili with rice. And I said to my wife when I made it, it's very unpretentious meal, and I was like, this could probably be the best thing I've ever made in my life. And it was good. It was good. I don't know if it was because I was so hungry, or if it was in fact the best thing I've ever made. But I guess I would say that then.
That's
An unpretentious chili.
Yeah, that's a great, because, and that's also might be related with our industry, that sometimes you don't need to overcomplicate things to make them the best. It might be the really simple on point resolution of your current problem, which is being hungry, for example. So that's but that's great. That's a great answer. So you think about your question to someone next who I will be interviewing, and I will of course then leave it answered. So yeah, that's a great combination of the context here. So thanks for this answer. And then quick shots at the end of the podcast, which are the answers yes, no, or option A or option B. And I have a couple of questions selected to you. So so give me your answer straight ahead. No explanations, no context, just pure answers. So question number one is tabs or spaces?
Tabs.
Agile or waterfall?
Agile.
Perfect code or solution or perfect deadline?
Perfect deadline.
Silent mode or notifications on?
Silent mode.
Weekends for side projects or weekends for relax?
Yeah, we've covered that. Weekends for relax.
And last but not least, quick hot fixes or longer refactors?
Quick hot fixes.
Yeah,
can be very rewarding.
True. These were the quick shots. So yeah, thanks for those answers. I kind of like the format that you cannot explain why you choose option A or option B. That's that's perfect.
It's a bit frustrating. You really want to
I know.
explain yourself, but
I know.
no, I'm gonna try not to.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Dennis, for these answers and for all the input that you've shared with us and with the people who will watch it today. What's next for your brand? What's next for Dennis Adolfi now? Are there any specific plans, any specific ambitions for new year? Because as we are almost there.
I have a I don't know, a goal or like a goal of a bigger stage. I've been
Public speaking stage.
Yeah. I've been doing a lot of public speaking this last year. Probably going to end up on like 15 or 20 talks on different stages, but they're not huge. I mean, the biggest one is like 100 people, which is, that's a lot of people, 100 people. But a dream would be to once try these huge stages, the Microsoft build stages or NDC, or maybe not next year, but maybe one year to try that huge stage, to at least be able to say you've done that once. That's my current kind of goal I have in at least the community wise, and work related. It's a lot of focus on AI at the moment, so probably gonna dig a lot deeper into AI going forward, specifically Azure AI. So that's probably going to be my main focus forward.
Okay, sounds cool. And of course, fingers crossed for this big stage. That sounds Sounds amazing, and of course, definitely rewarding at the end of the process to be able to deliver this for such a course. And maybe some of the people are watching us or listening to us now who might help this ambition to be realized. So let them and everyone else know where to find you the best in the internet. What's your typical way of communication with the people who can find you in the internet?
Yeah, that would probably be LinkedIn. So yeah, just search for my name on LinkedIn and yeah, connect. That's like the only like work related SoMe I have. Yeah.
And of course your blog, which we obviously will link up here, and
But
then
that's usually a one-way communication. That's just
yes.
me, a bunch of ramblings. If they want to connect, then we have a two-way conversation. That would be LinkedIn, I guess.
Yeah. Awesome. So yeah, thank you very much, Dennis, once again for your time and for your knowledge and your experiences being shared with us. And yeah, fingers crossed for the plans to be materialized. All the successes in coaching kids and coaching developers as well. And yeah, I hope that we will catch up sooner or later on one of the events or other podcast discussions, Umbraco office or whatever, and then we can chat more about it. So yeah, once again, thank you very much, and have a lovely rest of the week ahead of you then.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you for having me.